Hi, welcome to A Course in Miracles workbook class, brought to you from the Little Garden in Sedona, Arizona, USA. If you would like to study the course with others, but do not have a home group, you might want to watch our study group's home-style meetings on YouTube. For details of this and more, go to our website, www.thelittlegarden.org. Thank you and enjoy today's class. So we're in A Course in Miracles, lesson 133 in the workbook. I will not value what is valueless. Okay, so if you want to look at that, it's on page 245. We thought this was an important lesson and not to be missed.
Yeah. I mean, it begins with saying to us, we've been talking about these high theoretical ideas like there is no world, there's no value in the world. It's all these really high theoretical things. And the purpose of this lesson is to give us the practical benefits of how to get guidance from love, from the Holy Spirit, instead of from the ego.
Right.
So it's giving us criteria by which to make choices here. Because again, our one remaining power is freedom of choice. We are free to decide to see things differently. And that's the central lesson through everything. So when this lesson gives us the criteria by which to choose, we'll make better choices. We'll be better able to learn the lessons if we understand what our real choices are. The first understanding is our choices is for everything or nothing.
Oh, right.
And when we understand,
So that's the two, that you're just describing the two.
that's the first criteria. You're either deciding for everything or for nothing.
Okay.
And that's key because what it's saying here is if you recognize the ego's real goal is guilt, you will not listen to it.
Right. Right. It's too painful.
You'll look at this false face of innocence. You're like, I'm just being a dad, or I'm just being a parent, or I'm just, you'll look at this false innocence.
The mask.
The mask, and then get behind what's the real criteria for choice. So then you mentioned the first one then of what he was saying about this criteria for choice, everything or nothing. And then the first one was what? When you had just spoke to it.
Choosing a thing that won't last forever. Because he says that what's real is what will last forever. What's real is what's eternal. The ego is telling us this physical thing is real. This shirt is real. My bank account is real. I'm going to lose something. If you're going to lose it, it's not going to last forever. So don't make that the basis for your decision making.
Right.
So all of these things that he's talking about, and there's, I believe, 4 of them. There's 4. All of them are to help us determine whether we're choosing for the ego or for Holy Spirit's guidance.
Right.
Ego is going to lead us to pain. Holy Spirit's going to lead us to joy, happiness, and inner peace.
All right. So he's training our minds and he's saying to us, you have the ability right now to make better choices based upon what you value.
Right.
And so he's training our minds to see that we can teach ourselves immediately, regardless of what we're in, that we're chasing temporal values. So one example of that is, I understand that I put a piece of food in my mouth and I'm chewing it. I'm enjoying the food, but it's over.
Yeah.
Whatever benefit here is temporary, and then you lose it.
And then you need 4 hours later, you need some more.
Right,
Yeah, right.
So take a look at your choices and see, is that a temporary value or is that an eternal one? So that's the second one after everything or nothing. Then the next one is,
if you choose to take something away from someone else, in other words, if it's a competition for something, whether it's a competition for attention or status, or what else could you have a competition for? Anything that'll bring you triumph, because triumph is not happiness.
So we say things like men are this way, or women are this way, or conservatives, whatever it is, we have these roles. Right?
And how does that take something away from someone else?
Well, it's biblical. You go back to what Jesus said, you can't rob Peter to pay Paul. The idea is the equality of the members of the sonship.
Yeah.
Not the differences that make us more or less. It's the equality of us. And what seems to be something that can attack us is really the Holy Spirit. But we won't see it if I'm going like, well, I'm a philosopher. I know more than you. You know, that's the kind of stuff that we can see. Again,
right.
He's training us to see what we can see right now.
Right.
We can see a competition between us rather than a joining.
And joining is not only equality, it's oneness. So like in the teacher's manual, it says, who is a teacher of God? Anyone who has seen another person's interests as his own.
That's it.
Right? So when you see another person's interests as your own, you won't be trying to get from them. And you know, there's another place, it's in the gifts of God, where he talks about how we've been badly taught by the marketplace. You know, we think that, you know, pay little, get more. And if we think that way in our relationships, give little, get lots, then it's gonna produce pain for us.
That is the source of guilt in relationships.
It is.
I'm trying to give a little and get a lot.
Yeah.
So that'll produce guilt.
Yeah.
So what's the next one? So it's not taking from somebody to get something from them.
The next one is, what is it for? Think about it. What do I want this for? Why do I want to be angry at you for leaving potato chips all over the inside of the car? Why?
I never do that.
No. What purpose does it serve for me to have a clean car? Well, because I'm so perfect. I would never have chips all over the floor and seats of my car. That just wouldn't happen. In other words, my self-image. And self-image is a phony belief in who I am. It's like a false concept, a mask. That is never going to bring me happiness. I want this self-esteem that comes from knowing that I'm one with you. And it doesn't mean that I can't say, hey, please don't eat in the car.
Right.
I mean, I could do that, but from peace. And then if he keeps on eating in the car, ask again peacefully, just say, don't drive my car. I mean, we can do these things peacefully, but the whole thing is to look at what is the purpose.
Right.
Am I trying to make myself better than someone else? Yes.
So he's saying that we're going to give you this real criteria for making your choices.
Yeah.
And you can see what is the criteria by which I'm choosing.
Yeah.
And so, well, a lot of what we've been talking about lately is if I think we want to understand how powerful our decisions are.
Yeah.
And we can't understand that if they're just on this level of, I'm going to clean the closet today and tomorrow I'm going to go to the store and yada, yada, yada. We have to understand what the real choices are. So when we see that it's either love or fear, guilt or innocence, life or death, all of that, then we can make a decision in any given moment to bring us back to the contentment of peace.
Yeah.
I need nothing.
Yeah.
There's nothing that's lacking from me.
Right.
But we can't get to that experience until we understand that our decisions are this big: love or fear, guilt or innocence, forgiveness or condemnation. Whatever that opposition in the mind is,
yes,
that's what's making the mind dark.
It's not only opposition, or that is one way of saying it, but it's also like a barrier between people.
Yeah.
You know, it's like I'm me and you're you, and I'm going to assert myself. And I have to do that by in some way either enslaving you or making you bigger and better than me. And then I'm the victim that has to protect myself. But there's a barrier either way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's it. You know, that you said that, I've got to read the beginning of 12. So,
Chapter 12 in the text.
yeah.
We know that, we know the lingo.
So that's a really good way to put it. So in chapter 12, he says, but truth is real in its own right. And to believe in truth, you do not have to do anything.
Uh-huh.
The truth is just there.
Yeah.
The truth is.
Right.
Understand that you do not respond to anything directly, but to your interpretation of it.
That's important.
Your interpretation thus becomes the justification for the response. That is why analyzing the motives of others is hazardous to you. If you just, now here's what he's saying is the extent of the ego's thinking. If you decide that someone is really trying to attack you or desert you or enslave you,
Mm-hmm.
or you will respond as if they had actually done so, whether they have or not. So he's saying from the ego standpoint, you're either enslaving me or you're going to abandon me.
Yeah.
That's
Right.
where the ego's thinking is.
Yeah.
And he's telling us that so clearly that we can recognize it in our minds. I think that's a big part of this.
What purpose does it serve?
What purpose does it serve?
Timothy is always saying, what is it for? What are we doing this for? Why am I thinking this way?
Well, I'm not, the Course is saying that. It's
I
not
know,
me.
but you really do remember that.
Uh-huh.
You know, we used to have a sign in the dining room that said, what is it for? Just as a reminder to constantly ask. So,
Well, that's what, I mean, if I may be so bold to describe our relationship,
sure.
is that is the purpose we've come together and joined it. Is like accepting the atonement for ourselves.
Yeah.
Using that as the
Yes.
basis of our relationship.
Yes.
Because that's the one purpose we can join in. I can't really join, you know, you have an identity as a certain being and all of that. I have that. But what we can join in is the atonement.
And so, in other words, this relationship, as well as our relationship with everybody, but this is where we learn it very intensely, is forgiveness. That means dropping the veil and recognizing the Christ in one another. That's the purpose of everything when we're choosing with Holy Spirit.
Yeah, and we learn it in intensity because it's not always easy for others to recognize I'm just a saint.
He is. Yeah. I mean, we all are. Everybody is underneath all of the ego layers. You know what I mean? It's like, and our job as forgivers is to drop the ego layers in our own mind so we're not seeing those ego layers as being who they are.
That's it.
Drop my own mask, then I can see behind your mask. Like the little kid coming to your door on Halloween with a mask, being very scary looking, but you know who he is. You know, it's little Christopher who's 5 years old and lives next door. Right? That's forgiveness.
It is.
And that's the purpose of every decision when we make it with the Holy Spirit.
What am I?
Yeah, what am I?
That's always, he's saying, that's why there's no order of difficulty in miracles, because he's saying that the basis of all thinking starts with what do I see myself as?
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
So would you say it's okay for me to say I'm a saint as long as I can say that about everyone?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
I think so.
That's not robbing. See,
I
want to go, you know, the philosopher wants to go, you're not a philosopher.
Right.
So we're different.
Right. Right.
You know?
I say, I'm clean.
You're from New York and Manhattan. I'm just a tree trimmer who, you know, rubs his pants with food when
Yeah, right. That's not who we are.
Right.
So the purpose of every decision we make, every decision of thought, and then that gets expressed as action. But just look at the thoughts. Why am I wanting this? Why am I doing this? So let's go on, because we want to leave time for questions and comments and all that. So we, in paragraph 11, we come to the criterion for choice that's hardest to believe because its obviousness is overlaid with a lot of darkness, a lot of layers of obscurity. If you feel any guilt about what you're doing, Boy, I can sure think about times. Nothing specific is coming to my mind. Ego is really hiding that from me right now. But it's like, I know that there's times when I go like, I know this isn't right, but I'm going to do it anyway. That is something that makes me feel guilty, but doesn't mean that I am guilty. It means I've delayed my happiness.
So how would we look on ourselves when we do that?
With compassion.
Forgiveness?
Yeah. Don't you think?
I think so.
Yeah.
I mean, if we're in truth, if we're perfect and we have no needs, but we've forgotten that, then we seem to be imperfect with a need.
Yeah.
And so he gives us a need. He says, here's the guilt you're driving yourselves to, which if you're conscious that it's really guilt when you say, I'm a philosopher, when you realize that, you won't make that choice.
Right.
So think about that in terms of like being a parent or being an employer or being a friend,
right,
or whatever the content of your relationships are. He's giving us this criteria biblically. Don't seek those things that rust and corrupt. Don't seek the temporal. Don't try and make yourself something by denying that in somebody else, right? He's giving us, and then see, here's this guilt, here's this game of guilt,
right,
which we don't see.
Right.
You know, I mean, I can't tell.
If you tune in to how you feel,
yeah,
that helps.
That is it.
I know. It's like, how do you feel? That's in chapter 4, section 4. It's one of my favorites because it's so powerful. The one right use of judgment is, how do you feel? And it goes on to say, if you feel sad, no, this need not be. If you feel angry, no, this need not be. If you feel guilty, no, this need not be. Not that you keep on hurting your brother and deny that you're feeling guilty. You will feel guilty if you separate yourself from your brother, because that's the definition of ego.
Yeah.
Separation is the definition of ego.
Yeah.
And if you do something to hurt someone else, to deny their divinity, you will feel guilty because you have chosen ego, and the ego is guilt. That's what it is. It's separation.
Yeah,
it's fear.
Right.
So it's like, don't suppress your guilt. Don't push it down and say, I shouldn't feel guilty, but I'm going to keep on doing what I'm doing. Keep on thinking what I'm thinking. What a bad person that one is. But I'm not going to feel guilty about it. Well, you will feel guilty about it because you've separated yourself from them.
Yeah, I mean, when in 21, where he talks about sane thinking and insane thinking, he's saying the definition of the ego, which is insane, is something can happen to you without your will or God's will. That's the very definition of the ego, is opposing God.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's why the ego itself is guilt. So if I understand that my physical pain or my physical pleasure in and of itself, without this greater understanding of who we are, is just leading me to guilt, I'm not going to make that choice.
You're not going to make your body and your self-concept the guide for your life.
Yeah, that's
you know, it's like our personal identity is not the king of the world.
Yeah.
You know, our soul is, and that is what's shared with everyone.
That's really the key. And